Welcome to the Literary Apothecary. My name is Kate and I'm here today to talk about Dragon Along by Joseph John Lee. This is book 2 in the Dragons of Nora series. This is a YA cozy fantasy. I read an arc of this, which I got my written review up before release date, but I did not get this video up before release date. But this was just released back in April, I believe. If that author name sounds familiar to you, that's because he wrote Upscaled, which is book 1 in the Dragons of Nora series, but also the Gunslingers and Spellbinders trilogy, which I talked about on this channel a whole bunch last year and the year before that. I absolutely loved that series. My general thoughts about this book is that I thought it was a really cute book. It was a great second book after book 1, but it felt like it was a little bit rushed and scattered to me. It felt like book 1 was written with more care and a more solid plot line, and I'll talk about that in just a minute. First, a spoiler-free summary of what this book is all about. Now, this might give away some spoilers for book 1, so if you haven't read book 1 Upscaled yet, you might want to skip ahead to where I start talking about individual points along with the spoiler-free disclaimers. But this won't give away spoilers for this book itself, book 2. Sometimes the promise of a different story doesn't quite go the way you plan. After the adventure of a lifetime and hatching a dragon of his own, Cameron promises his mother that they won't be forced on the same journey his sister embarked on. That pledge appears to have happened a bit too literally, for as much as Cameron's hatchling Brian loves to sit and raid with him, they share neither the bond nor the friendship that Cameron's sister had with her dragon. When his grandparents invite the family to their new home outside the capital city of Moore, Cameron thinks the extent of his new story is getting rid of the belligerent gnome that has taken up residence in his grandparents' bathroom. At least until the gnome forms an instant rapport with Brian that leaves Cameron flummoxed and also quite jealous. If Cameron is to discover why he cannot form a bond with his new dragon, he must navigate the strange webs of Moore, spun by a secret scholarly society, a band of fae hunters, tourists taking up too much space, and the banned books section at the local library. Evidently, the days of bonding over books and a cuppa have yet to make their way to the land of Nora. So let's just jump straight to the review part of this video. For characters, I loved our characters, but our main character felt a little too old for what his age was supposed to be, in my opinion. I still loved him and I still loved reading from his point of view. But some of his mannerisms and the ways that he speaks and his actions just felt a little bit older than how old he was supposed to be, which I think was 8, if I remember correctly, but I could be totally wrong on that. Atmosphere and setting, we had so much world building in this book and I loved it. We got to see different parts of this world. We got to go to Moore, which we heard a lot about in book 1, but we didn't actually quite see it as we did in book 2, and I loved it. Writing style, here's where I have some issues with this book, and they're just minor, but because I still enjoyed it, but I can't leave them out. As I said before, it felt like this book was a little bit rushed in its writing, and it felt like the plot, which I'll talk about more in just a second when we get to plot, was a bit meandering. So let's talk about the plot. It was a bit hard to follow at times because it had so much meandering going through that I wasn't sure if this was just a side quest, a side note, or if this was important to read for the plot. It felt like, especially compared to book 1, the plot was a lot looser. There didn't feel like until we got to the very end there was any kind of solid plot line. Because it meandered so much, it was hard to tell what was the actual plot. Intrigue, though, I was intrigued the entire time. I was interested on every page. I had to know what was going to happen to Brian and Cameron. Logic, for the most part, it made logical sense to me, especially it being a YA book. There was a couple times where I had questions, but for the most part, it made logical sense. And enjoyment. I truly, truly loved this book. I enjoyed it a lot, and I can't wait to see where book 3 takes us. I think there's going to be a book 3. I think this is a series and not a duology, but I might be wrong on that also. But I did love Dragging Along, and what a fantastic title. This series just has great titles in it. If you have read Dragging Along, let me know in the comments below. What did you think of it? And what did you think of it compared to book 1 upscaled? As always, keep reading, and I love you all to the moon and back. Bye.